Hello, everybody. I'm Sherry Harris, and I'm with my colleague and friend, Kipp McClurg. And we are going to be talking to you today about a sermon series I'm really excited about. It's called Proceed with Caution. It begins on September the 13th. It's a 3-week series. And basically, it's how to navigate this ever-changing world that we live in, a world that is full of fear and noise and confusion, and how we deal with that. This is week 2, and Kipp has the absolute best title. His title is Talk Less. But before I let him tell us a little bit about that, I want to let you know that the YouTube description for this video, there's a link that will take you to a Bible study complete with questions. So, Kipp, your passage is on talking less. I like to talk a lot. So, share with me what direction you're going in.
Well, we all like to, get our point across and do that. But what's fascinating is to see. We think of Jesus as one who talked a lot. I mean, certainly we have the whole New Testament to learn from what he said. But there were strategic moments when Jesus actually didn't speak, or when he saw other people who were speaking he realized that they were being harmful. So one piece of the sermon comes out of Matthew chapter 16, and Jesus is with the disciples, and he's telling them, I'm going to die. I've got to go to Jerusalem, and Peter looks at him and says, Jesus, don't talk that way. This is not where we need to head. And the passage. Jesus turns around and looks at him. What does he say to Peter? He says, "Get behind me, Satan."
Yeah.
I mean, Satan, looking at Peter, is the first of the called disciples who is using his mouth, but in ways that are not in the least bit helpful nor informed. And Jesus just looks at him and stops him in his tracks. And I guess to me, the thing that I've been thinking about as I've been developing the sermon is, I wonder how many times Jesus in my life has been there screaming that same thing at me, if I could have heard it, saying, "Get behind me, Satan." Kipp, you are proceeding down a path where you don't know what you don't know, and it is not the time to talk. It's the time to listen and to learn and to trust others who may know something more than you do. And so that was an amazing moment, I think, and an amazing passage. And I don't know how Peter would have taken that, but of course we know he didn't heed that very well.
No.
He kept talking. But I think it's an important reminder for us that there are moments when we don't need to speak because we truly aren't informed. There's another passage that Jesus is in John chapter 8, where he actually doesn't use any words. And it's the story of the woman who was caught in adultery, and you've got all of these, I'm sure mostly male religious leaders, all standing around, and they're ready to stone this woman because she's participated in what was a violation of the religious crime. And Jesus says absolutely not a word. But he begins to write in the sand. Now, we don't know what he writes in the sand.
Wouldn't you love to know that?
It would have been fun. I bet there would have been a lot of chatter that you could have put on social media if you could have interpreted what he put. But he didn't.
No.
He didn't do that. And one by one, each of those people began to go away. And I think I've learned the hardest thing that I've learned, or one of the harder ones I've learned as a pastor, is that quite often not speaking is much more effective than saying something. And it also communicates something by not speaking, because the lack of words have power. And particularly for people, if you're trying to build credibility, your lack of words can have power as much as someone who's just running their mouth all the time,
right,
and saying nothing in the midst of it. So the third passage that sort of informs this piece is James chapter 3. Now you probably know a little bit about James 3. What's that one known for?
Well, it's known for the tongue.
It's all about the tongue. And he compares it to so many different things. He said it's like a bridle in your mouth. It's like a fire. It's such a little thing, but it controls the direction of your life.
Absolutely.
And it can take you to really good places, and it can take you to very bad places. Now, my family likes to kayak. Well, let me just say, I like to kayak, and my family goes along sometimes, so I have to qualify that. But my youngest child doesn't like to be in a kayak by himself, particularly on whitewater, because it's very unpredictable.
Sure.
And so, not that we go in really big creeks, but some of even a small creek can have a little surprise drop in elevation. And so, one of the things when we got a double kayak, it changed how you maneuvered it, because normally you could just paddle to one side, and you paddle over here, go that way, and you paddle over here, you go that way. But the longer the boat, the harder it is to affect that kind of steering. And so, sitting in the back, I learned that I had to take my oar and use it as a rudder for the boat. And we found ourselves in a lot of trouble at times because we couldn't turn fast enough. And then I finally told him, don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. And I learned I could just turn that rudder, that oar just a little bit, and it would maneuver it to where we wanted to go. It takes precision, and you have to really be paying attention, and it takes a little bit of skill, but it can take you to good places. It can also take you over a waterfall.
Right.
And so James uses that analogy, and he says the tongue is the same way. If you're skillful and you use your words well, they can do great things. But if you don't use it well and it gets out of control, it can take you over a waterfall. It's like throwing a little fire, and you've got a forest fire, all because your words weren't used properly. And so I think in the world that we live, we are surrounded by people talking a lot.
Constantly, yeah.
And our temptation is to get into those conversations, be they verbally or on social media, email exchanges, or and for those of us who don't get involved as much, we watch kind of with horror as these things sort of go. But I think we hear from Jesus and from James that fewer words go a long way. And sometimes silence is golden. And no matter what we do, we need to proceed with caution.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks for joining us today, everybody. And we look forward and hope that you're able to learn from the Bible study that's provided.